Oh, I think you're just too autistic for the job. So it was just battle after battle.
Dealing with autism as a child, what environment would you have wanted?
The school I was at, it was full of drug dealers and full of kids hopping over the fence to do deals, and like the kids when they would kick off would throw chairs, and then there was kids like trying to set each other on fire and stuff like that. And it's like the teachers were just pinning, like if you say get off, they'd hit you.
What were you going through when you became severely depressed?
The Tourette's got very bad. Like at times it's like imagine you've got a ball of energy and it just comes out. So it could be a twitch, it could be like a swear word, it could be like a smack on the table. In powerlifting, nearly everyone I've met's autistic. It's not the losing, it's the losing to bullies. I think that's the number one thing.
Do you feel like it's holding you back in any way?
I know a lot of people who have literally just been diagnosed with autism, some people as late as 50s. Like, so that tells us that it's always been there. It's just like what you said, it wasn't as well known.
Just there you mentioned we'll get onto the serious stuff.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that? So today we are joined by Olly Whalley. Now, Olly, I know you're someone who lives with OCD, pretty extremely as well. Yeah. I know that previously before the podcast, mate, you've told us how bad it is. And as soon as, I know you've reached out a few times to come on the pod, and I thought as soon as you told us that backstory, Olly, I thought this is something that I need to get out there. And the reason I say that is a lot of people, as you say, think it's obsessive cleaning disorder or different types of terms. I actually know a few people with it myself. But to hear what the stuff that you've gone through and how you've got to the person you have become, it's been unbelievable. But for the ones who don't know what it's really like to struggle with something like that, I know you've had autism, or you've got autism. Sorry, you've got autism. You suffer with Tourette's, or you live with Tourette's.
So I got diagnosed when I was 13. But the thing with Tourette's is it's something you can never be undiagnosed with. So like life stress can bring it back on, but at the moment that's luckily something I'm not having to deal with.
So just when we get into this, anything I asked, please don't think it's a dumb question. Cause
open book.
I mean, even Tourette's for me, I feel like, is that just where people has outbursts of swearing? Mm-hmm. I know that there will be a lot more than that goes on. So to take it back, like, where are you actually from, and when did you first realise that you lived with OCD?
So to take it back a bit, obviously born and bred in Newcastle, big Newcastle supporter. My whole life I've lived in a little town called Long Benton, so it's like 10 minutes from city centre. So yeah, always grew up in Newcastle. To take it back a bit, sort of like I've always sort of dealt with adversity. So obviously, like I said, I've got autism as well, something I'm very open with. So yeah, like my parents knew from the age of 5 that I had autism. So it was sort of like, it was a battle from the beginning. To pretty much sum it up, I mean, when I was born as well, I was born with something called a hyperspadias, which affected my bladder as well. So you could pretty much say from birth I was somewhat faced with harsh realities, I'd say. So it was just battle after battle. But I think in a way that sort of makes me who I am today, is like constantly just never giving up, because things will always be there. So it's how you deal with it, really. So yeah, that's pretty much, to sum it up, it's just a never-ending battle. So
as a child growing up, from your recollection, Olly, like, did you, through the things you'd faced or kind of lived with, did you ever experience the harsh reality of that, or the harsh end of it? As in, were you bullied or picked on or chosen or like picked out because you've got them things?
Oh, massively, mate. Yeah, I think this is what makes me. But obviously, to bring it back a bit, obviously going into childhood, I mean, like I grew up with a sister, mum and dad. I mean, mum and dad, I was never like, we're not a rich family, but in my eyes, when I was younger, it was almost like I was. So like even my sister, like mum and dad always put me and my sister first, always. So we always thought we were so much richer in a way, if that makes sense, because we were so like spoilt and looked after. But like mum and dad were very protective, because from a young age I was always bullied. Like I say, going back to that urine problem, like that affected us all the way up until 9. I had to have another operation when I was 9. So I would, even like when I was a kid, I would go to the toilet like 20 times a day. So kids would obviously say stuff like, oh, there's pissy pants, stuff like that. So from that, and then obviously moving on, as I hit like 9, 10, I got diagnosed with ADHD. And then sort of as you're getting old, I think things get harder in a way. Mm-hmm. To say things as you get older get easier. I think you just get used to people more. But it's also in a way is like maturing, is knowing how to deal with things better. So yeah, like I say, it started off with small things, but the bigger things I think I've dealt very well with. Like I say, Once I got the Tourette's, that was really the big icing on the cake, is when it all sort of started. Because at that point, like I say, still around age 9, when I got diagnosed with a condition called vasovagal syncope. So I was watching a WWE show with my dad, and I'd actually blacked out when I was at the show. I had a heart arrhythmia at the time. So basically, everyone has sort of different triggers for it. Like, vasovagal syncope could be someone just passing out with a sight of blood. Like, it can be small things, but for me, it was caused by, like, a hormone imbalancement. So basically, when I grew, when my hormones changed, my blood pressure couldn't adapt quite as quick, which would end up me just blacking out. And, like, for days, I would be ill. Like, the doctor was telling us to drink, like, 8 Lucozade sports a day, because, like, honestly, my blood sugars and blood pressure was that low. And it took years for us to get back into school. I mean, like, you've got parents sort of, like, fighting to take their kids on holiday out of school, where, like, my parents were fighting us to get into school. And I think, in a way, that sort of affects, because obviously, from ages, like, 9 to 12, like, where you should be socialising and making friends. I mean, like, I wasn't even accepted in football clubs because I was so different. So I think, like, things like this all add up towards the journey, so...
You know, when you got diagnosed with the ADHD,
yes,
what was it that got that diagnosis?
I think probably at the time would have been, like, lack of concentration in the classroom. Because I think a lot of people, again, who have autism, like, the first thing that they knock off is always ADHD. And I know very, very few people, apart from people who are older, but people like myself who were diagnosed younger, like, will always tackle ADHD first. So I think at first they put it down to, oh, he's just a naughty kid. And then it goes like, oh, well, he's struggling to concentrate. He generally does want to be here and learn, but, like, he's struggling to concentrate, so it must be ADHD. And then I think from there, they just, like, chip away at what could be next, so to speak. So,
in the autism side of things, Olly, when did you notice that? Because, you know, I know, again, I know quite a few people with autism. And from what I can see of them, because it just doesn't come across that it affects them in any way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If anything, they just seem a bit more intelligent.
Yeah, yeah.
There's certainly the lads who I know.
Yeah.
How did that kind of come out in you, the autism? Like, what kind of traits is it something you can kind of self-assess and understand that you've got?
Yeah.
Or is it something that other people would have to point out?
Well, my parents now, like, obviously, as you get older, like, obviously your parents always... I mean, my parents were always, when I was younger, they always sort of told us what was going on, in a sense. Obviously not to the detail I would know now, because obviously when you're younger, you don't understand things as much. But my parents were always, like, sort of... I was never in the dark, if that made sense. But so even I talk about my autism quite regularly, and even my mum and dad said, like, from the age of 5, they knew. From, like, because it's stuff as small as, like, if you've got an interest in trains, that's one of the number one things. So when I was younger, I used to be obsessed with trains, and, like, and then when I was younger again, I used to be obsessed with toy hoofers, like, pulling them apart and putting them back together. So that was sort of my parents' like recognition of there's a high chance he's autistic. But I think as I got older, it was the sort of the routine was the number one thing, and like the routine and the just like hating not knowing things. Like, so for example, if like someone was to say, for example, like if a family member was to say, "Oh, we're gonna go out today." Oh, okay. Like, what time we're gonna go out? Oh, like I'm not sure. Maybe 5, maybe 7. I'm not sure yet. That was very like hard to sort of take in.
It's so funny because the reason I'm smiling there is because I'm like that well, and it's like not saying that I don't know. I'm not saying I'm diagnosed with autism or anything, but there's a lot of traits which you've already said. The ADHD thing is something that I feel like gets hoid around a shitload. And there's a lot of traits like the concentration. I lack concentration a lot. I'm very obsessive with stuff. You know, if I get stuck into something like even the podcast. Mm-hmm. I remember when I wanted to start a podcast, it was like, I want to start a podcast, but I want to do 100 episodes.
So sidetracked for things.
But it was just more of a case of like, right, okay, you want to start a podcast, lads? I want to do 100 episodes. But why do you want to do 100? I just want 100 and I'm not going to stop till I hit 100. I don't know where, it's like that figure's just bullshit. It's out of thin air. But in my head, like, I've got to hit 100. Then it's like, right now, I can't concentrate until I've hit this number or I've done it. So I don't know what that is. Maybe that's just my personality. I don't know how it is, but I know that I've definitely got an addictive personality. When I get into something, I can't stop. Concentration, I lack. Like, I know that, and again, having this podcast for you is class for me because I get to learn about myself when I'm speaking to someone who's kind of dealt and lived through these things. But I know that when, for instance, if he's a really good example, right? So you know, the telly's on in the house.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, at the end of the film, I need to know what's gone on, and I've watched the whole thing. How crazy is that?
Yeah, sort of drifting away in a sense.
Not even drifting.
Yeah.
Totally no recollection. Like I'll even say it. I will ask or something. I'll be like, so who's he? Oh,
yeah.
And I don't know, but I do understand that it's because my mind is often in other things, and I know that it's like it's business or it's doing this or I need to achieve that. I've got to. So I don't know where that comes from, but it can be quite tormenting because you feel like you can't ever switch off. So in business, it's good for me because it helps us keep
I'm
going.
very like that, yeah.
So I just wondered, when you were younger to have them kind of traits, you were always going to kind of do something. I know obviously now you're a power lifter. Yeah. What's your record?
So I currently hold the so for 18 and under, I have the all-time biggest squat in the region, regardless of weight class. So 267.5 kilos, my biggest squat.
Bloody hell, mate. That's mad, that.
So yeah. But to sort of cover what you said in a way, it's like, obviously, when you said, obviously, you will watch a film and then sometimes you can't remember it. So sometimes, like, even if you're an extrovert, like, socially, like, I'll always talk to people, I'm very social, but, like, sometimes you sort of go in yourself and, like, you think about, like, for example, let's say you've got a business trip, because I know you're a busy man. Let's say you've got a business trip. Even if you're watching a film, you're thinking about getting there, what you need to do first, planning stuff. And it's almost like you're internally planning stuff before you're already there. Mm-hmm. So before you know it, even though you're watching something, just because you're physically here, mentally sometimes you're not, because you're so concentrated on what you need to get done.
You alright, people? Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Here's a random one for you. Most of you who are actually watching this episode don't actually subscribe to it. So just do us a favour, will you? Can you click the like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss another episode, hit subscribe, all that good stuff, because we go up and down the country to try and bring you the best show possible. We're not messing around here, so please just show some love, will you?
So the thing is, obviously, when I was younger, I started off... So my dad, obviously, he held fitness world records. He was into martial arts and stuff like that. So when I was younger, I mean, he got us into training and stuff like that, kickboxing. I mean, I was doing the splits by the age of 5. So I did that from like the age of 4 to 9. Obviously, my dad training this. And then obviously a condition, what I told you about when I was 9 hit, and obviously that dampened it down a bit. So after that, it was the normal, like, I want to be a goalkeeper. So like every kid's dream. So I was like, so that was sort of the dream. I always wanted to be a goalkeeper, but sort of as I got older, I sort of like knew it wasn't going to be that. But I knew it was going to be something. I just didn't know what. So I always knew that I was destined to be something better, if that makes sense. So, because I think having autism, you're very like, sort of like what you said before, when you do something, it doesn't matter how long it takes, you're very in it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's 1,000%, like, nothing else fucking matters, like, 100% into this, so to speak. So, yeah, even with me powerlifting now, it's just, like, 100% it's just the fixation side of it. So, when you're so driven and you've been through so much, it's like, even at a young age, I was like, when I find something that I love to do and I stick to it, I don't care how long it takes, I'll become the best at it. I don't care how long it takes. I think the whole thing of, like, even in life and obviously with powerlifting, with training, people talk about things being linear, like always progressing, and really that just isn't the case. I mean, even people with jobs, to get your dream job, sometimes you've got to demote yourself to then promote yourself. Like, life's not always going to be smooth sailing, and I think even at a young age, I realised that very quickly.
You speak very well, mate, and like you've clearly got a good head on your shoulders, and I think I wish you had nothing but the best, mate, to be fair, and I think you will do well with what you're doing. Again, your head's clearly in what you're doing with the powerlifting stuff, which again I want to touch on towards a bit later on. But for me, like those type of things, like with the autism stuff, a lot of stigmas are, you know, again, what I've heard, and I know it may come across ignorant, and it's like, the struggle with social skills and different things. You seem completely the opposite. Like, I could hire you in any room and I think you'd be sound. Yeah. Did you ever battle with social skills?
Yeah, massively. So let's go to like age 12. So like age 12, I just sort of been diagnosed with Tourette's. And my mum was still pushing towards the autism diagnosis. So I was in a special school at this point, and it was classed as like a referral unit. So it's like you could stay there or we'll find somewhere where you're better suited. I know everyone's upbringing is different, but some people, even though they've got a bad upbringing, some people generally don't know better, but there's people who have the chance to get out of that don't, if that makes sense. Mm. So it's almost like they've got a chance to get out of trouble, but they just want to be there. Which, even at a young age, I mean, the school I was at, it was full of drug dealers and full of kids hopping over the fence to do deals and like setting fire alarms off to go do deals over the fence. And I mean, I was a 12-year-old autistic kid. Like, I was like proper autistic, if that makes sense. Not proper autistic in the sense like I couldn't speak and I was like, but autistic in the fact that's why I was there. Because a lot of kids were there for behavioural issues. So sort of once I got there, it was like, it was very tough from there. So like the teachers were very abusive, and even as someone with autism, you'd have like, when people are kicking off, you can't cope. And like when I was younger, I'd like have mental breakdowns, like meltdowns in the classroom, and like the teachers would just pin you, and like if you say get off, they'd hit you. Like
really?
this was even in like 2018. This was in the 60s, bro. You know what I mean? So
how old are you now?
19.
Bloody hell.
19. So it wasn't even that long ago if you think about it. So yeah, what was the specifics you asked again? Sorry, again, the ADHD.
Yeah, no. So it's just in regards to like with that autism stuff, like the social skills.
Oh, the social skills, right? Back on track. So, anyways, as I was saying, I was at that school, and sort of like, I've always been a very, very kind person. Like, I've always been trying to be kind to people. Like, for example, I think if I let's say I bought a McDonald's, I'd always want to share. Or like if someone didn't have money, I'd always want to buy them one. Even if I knew the chances were they wouldn't do the same for me. It's like, well, I'm not them, I'm me, so to speak. That's what I would do, not what they would do. But at that point, I was very like outgoing. But these people who I was around had like the mindset of like, well, they were drug dealers at age 13 around bad people, so they were on very different levels to me. Well, I was just like a 12-year-old kid who's just wanted to play football at school and watch WWE when he gets home and stuff like that. So socially, I was always okay, but then it got to the point where I was getting bullied. And at that point, the Tourette's was very bad. But because I was on edge with the people I was around, the Tourette's got very bad. Like, so you said before you touched on the Tourette's, like what it actually means, and it's sort of like at times it's like imagine you've got a ball of energy and it just comes out. And how it comes out is how your fucking mind chooses it to come out. So it could be a twitch, it could be like a swear word, it could be like a smack on the table. And it honestly got to the point it was really fucking annoying because it was like, you were trying to fight it from coming out. Because, you know, as soon as it would come out, the kids are going to be like, oh, there's fucking, or there's our twitchy, or like, and I think that from a young age, again, sort of like, I grew out of that as I hit like 14, 15, like it went away, and luckily it's never come back since. But I think to sort of get from that again sort of shapes who I am today. So.
Of course it does, mate. How do they know it was Tourette's? Because that could it be that it was kind of outbursts of this lad who'd been put in here with all these other people who didn't have autism and stuff, and it was your way of kind of venting at that age? Because if it's never happened again, I mean, I don't know that this one.
Good question. So other people in the family, in my family, had it. So that straight away shined the light on it. And obviously, my mum, because other people in the family had it, my mum knew straight away. So I started displaying sort of like symptoms from the age of like 11. And obviously, the family member who had it was exactly the same. So like again, it starts off as just like, sometimes it started small. So even before I was at that school, it was there. Like I was doing all the twitches and the swearing and just like uncontrollable. But then, obviously, with someone who's already got Tourette's, if you put them in a very stressful, toxic, violent atmosphere, if stress is what causes it, then it obviously just shot up. It made it worse. Once I'd left there, like towards the end, and then once I'd actually left, it was pretty much like it was never there.
Did you ever go into a normal school after that?
No.
Oh.
So after that, I went to another special school again, but there was no like in the middle, like, so you had like behavioural units where I was, which I just didn't belong with. I was a good kid amongst people who didn't want to be good kids. And then you had special schools who, some of them were similar to me, but again, some of them just wanted to be bad and knew they could use it as a card. Like, obviously, as an autistic kid, when you had meltdowns, like, I'm not going to say I was perfect as an autistic kid. I wasn't, because there was stuff like you just didn't know how to cope with. But like, I wouldn't sort of play it as a card, if that makes sense, to the extent that these kids did. Like, they knew they could just do anything they wanted and say, well, I'm autistic, you can't touch me, sort of thing.
But I think this is why this is really helpful, this conversation, because, I mean, you're only 19.
Yeah,
so, you know, this wasn't a million years ago when this all was, you were going through all this type of stuff. But I know that there'll be people with autistic children or family members or whatever. And if you can reflect now and look back, Ollie, dealing with autism as a child,
yes,
what would you have wanted to happen? What environment would you have wanted? What did you want? What would have kept you like calm?
I think, sort of looking back, because obviously when I said I was 9, I wasn't in school. I think if they'd put us in a special school from the age of 9, because that's originally what my parents fought for, was obviously when I was blacking out all the time, and then obviously was having like these non-epileptic seizure sort of stuff. That's what they were fighting for, was for us to be put in a special school. But at the time it was down to foot. There was like obviously government funding, and then the spaces, like, because obviously they're only limited to spaces. And then some schools who did have spaces were like, well, he's not actually suited here. I think sort of if I was put in a special school earlier, I think it would have made my life a bit easier. But not just mine, I think my parents, because I mean, I was out of school from pretty much like the age, like pretty much from like 8, 9 to like 11, 12. Because even when I got to that special school, the behavioural school, it was times when my parents would keep us off because, again, the teachers were hitting, and there was like police matters going on with teachers hitting, and like the kids was just like, it was so like, even the teachers were so like corrupt, and it was just so wild. So,
it's almost a catch-22 though, isn't it? Because you've got like someone with, even if it was behavioural issues or outbursts or autism or Tourette's or whatever the child's going through, to then take them out of an environment, to put them in amongst other people who are having all these mad outbursts and drugged it's going to cause that toxic environment. It's going to cause the stress. It's going to cause them hormone. Like, it's almost, then you're getting pulled out of school, so then it's affecting your learning. And then you can't build your social skills. So it's almost like a catch-22. Do you think you could have coped in a normal school?
Nah, so obviously I briefly went to a normal like mainstream high school, and that didn't last 3 months.
What happened?
I think because it was such I think in any obviously we've covered the behavioural school, but like in an actual high school, you've got all these kids mixed. So you've got just kids just being kids acting like idiots, and that's fair enough, they're kids. And then you've obviously got these dodgy people who are in the behavioural schools, because half of them start off in the mainstream and then they get shipped out. And then you've got kids like me who generally just wanted to be there, but obviously had autism. So I think what made me not last was just people just simply, pardon the French, but being cunts pretty much. So yeah, people just being people, and like, I think, again, like, Long Benton isn't a bad place, but there is some bad people. And, like, again, like, I think people under the wrong influence, even from year 7, like, these people were, like, under the wrong influences and constantly wanted to cause trouble. And, again, this is when Tourette's was just starting.
So do you think pulling you out of the mainstream high schools is more of a strategy to stop bullying? Effective.
Yeah, so obviously it wasn't so much of a pull-out that it was a transfer that up to the behavioural school. But any decision my parents did, it was sort of, I would have to be on board with it. So when I said, like, I'm not going back, my parents would support that because they knew the impact it would have. And I think especially with my parents, obviously, dealing with similar issues in the past, they sort of knew the signs of, like, right, well, he's not going to be able to cope well with this. So every decision my parents made was the best decision. Even looking back on it now, every decision that was made worked out well in the end. Because, I mean, being around kids who were just being kids, and then, like, the kids, when they would kick off, would throw chairs, and then there was kids, like, trying to set each other on fire and stuff like that. And it's like, with someone who's already got poor health, and I mean, if my anxiety levels got too high, at that point I would just black out. So it was like, obviously, I still had that condition going on. So everything my parents did, they would sort of ask me first. Now, sort of at that point, I was having people bullying us, and I was just breaking down and fighting all the time. And I was like, I can't cope with this. Like, I'm trying to be good, and this is clearly not working. So my parents obviously supported that decision, because obviously, at the end of the day, I think from a parent's perspective as well, it's like, fair enough to have a son that doesn't have that much going on. But I mean, even at this point, age 11, I'd had obviously that blacking out condition. I'd had ADHD. The Tourette's was on the horizon. So I think, and the pissing problem was still about around at that point. So I think all of that, the parents' perspective was like, he's got enough going on, would rather sort of take the time. But I'd already been out of school a long time at that point, because obviously with his blacking out, it took ages to find a school.
When you mentioned about the pissing problem, I noticed you laugh and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that something that embarrassed you?
No, even back then, no. Like, not really. It's just, I was just a laugh because obviously pissing problems sounds funny, but I think you can never take life too seriously, especially with like how intense things are. But like I say, it was mainly a problem when I was in primary school, but it still floated around even when I got a little bit older, then it sort of just disappeared. I mean, I piss all the time now, but that's just because I'm a powerlifter and I like 5 litres of water a day.
Because the reason I ask you that, mate, is because hopefully, you know, you never know who's going to watch these videos, and I know that they do touch a lot of people who they'll message in and they'll say, bloody hell, mate, I'm dealing with this problem, and he said that. What you don't realise is, mate, even if there's 10 people who view this episode, you never know who's watching. It could be 10 people with autism who are really battling. You just don't know. So, like, them things are not something to be ashamed of. They're not your fault. None of them are your fault. 100%. Do you know what I mean?
I'm just, personally, I mean, everyone deals with things different. I mean, even a thing with autism, obviously, I know we're going to cover the powerlifting later, but like in powerlifting, nearly everyone I've met's autistic. So like autism, another person, maybe someone who's not in a community as such, might be a bit more harder to tell people. Where like in powerlifting, it's like, oh, I'm autistic. Oh yeah, me too, bro. It's sort of like it's 2 year round, and so in a sense, it's easier to deal with stuff. Mm-hmm. I think when you're around people, when it's sort of like a community thing, when you're around people more who have the same as what you have, it becomes less like, not embarrassing, but less awkward. Because if you tell something to someone who doesn't know what it is, they're going to judge from what they know. Like, oh, you're autistic. So, oh, does that mean like you shit your pants? Like, you do crazy stuff like this that people may have heard. So I think being around people like what you said, and knowing like that they're not alone. I think normalizing things that are going on in the world is a perfect way of dealing with stuff.
Because I think whether it's autism, ADHD is definitely very popular now.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, because you know, you hear different things, and I've got friends who've got kids who we've had these conversations with, and you've always got, like, when you have a child, you've always got like concerns over how they're going to be, are they going to be healthy, or this and the other.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you might hear like, oh, she's got autism, he's got autism and stuff. And then you'll get a lot of people on the other side who get angry at a little bit, like everyone's got that now. But people always had them things. They just weren't talked about like they are now, or did they not have them? And people now are saying, actually, well, I'm like even me when I said about the ADHD.
Yeah.
I'm convinced I've got that.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I'd need a diagnosis for. Because I don't give a shit if I've got that. It's not something, like, I'm just like, well, I know I struggle to concentrate. I know I'm hyper-focused on certain things. I know I'm obsessive with certain things. But what good would it do me if someone was like, you're ADHD, you've got OCD, you've got... It doesn't... However, if I'm misbehaving in schools or having meltdowns or seizures or blacking out, fair enough, there's got to be some kind of diagnosis to help that. Do you think... Can you tell if someone's like bullshitting with it or not?
So to go back a bit, obviously you said like, funny enough, so to ask you a personal question, how old are you sort of?
35.
35. So a few friends I know, obviously, like, because obviously in powerlifting, I've got friends from my age up until like their 60s. It's the people you know and the people you compete with. So I know a lot of people who have literally just been diagnosed with autism, some people as late as 50s. Like, so that tells us that it's always been there. It's just like what you said, it wasn't as well known. It wasn't as like, people didn't know as much about it. But yeah, I definitely think, even you said before, like, you think you've got ADHD, and like, again, you probably have, because you're in a generation where like, it wasn't sort of around. I think quite a lot of people, especially like people around your age, probably definitely do have something. Because the thing is, it's like, when you compare people's traits, it's like, you can just tell straight away, but at the same time, it's like, anywhere from like the 80s, 90s, I think even until like the early 2000s, like, it wasn't as big a deal. Like, I know I've spoke to people like from like, who are in their 40s, and when you misbehave in school, you're either a psychopath or like, oh, it's fizzy pop syndrome. Like, oh, you drank too much fizzy pop, so you're fucking mental. Like, so the 80s, 90s. But I think as times went on, the reason why more people's diagnosed with it is because more people generally, like, it's something that's more, not a trend, but we're more educated on a sort of a society, I would say. But I definitely think there is people who don't have it who try and jump on it as a trend.
Because I remember there was lads at school who they weren't allowed orange juice and that.
Yeah,
that would make them go mad. And it's almost like, was that something that they actually had, or was that just some kind of sugar rush or something?
I think, well, I'm sure there's the science behind, like, obviously sugar makes ADHD worse, but thing is, obviously from a powerlifting, and I'm a powerlifting coach, and obviously got PT diplomas. From a science perspective, it's like, if you have sugar, orange juice is like it's an instant digestion sugar, so not long after having it, you're gonna get energy. So, like, and that's even from a science perspective. So that's for anyone. You're going to generally feel more energetic in a way. But, like, how that's displayed depends on the person and what they've got. But I definitely think now there's too many people, especially, like, I'm not scared to tackle the tough topics, obviously, because I know enough to say. And, like, I feel like a lot of influencers play cards too much to try and get more views. It's like, and that sometimes how you catch them out is when they don't say a specific word. They say, me mental health's really bad. And when people say, like, oh, what mental health have you got? And they went, oh, just mental health. It's like, but what is that to you? What does that word mean to you? Because mental health could be from bipolar to bulimia to borderline personality disorder to autism. It's like, so when people say, like, oh, like, not to be personal, but what sort of struggling? Just, oh, I'm just struggling. It's like, yeah, well, you're not really giving anyone enough of daylight to know what's going on, if that makes sense. And I know some people are more a closed book than others, but you can tell when people are just playing the card to get views. And I think from someone, obviously we'll get into it later, but like from someone who was like really dealt with terrible issues and still got up every day with something I live by, even when I was waking up every day with bad issues with anxiety attacks and being sick, like, as more recent, I would still get up, and my first objective when I go into the gym is to make sure my friends are okay. It's like, fuck me, like, I know I'm not feeling great, like, but that's not going to change. I need to make sure that everyone else is okay. So
if you don't know by now, I run a business called The Content PT. I create content for influencers, PTs, online coaches and fitness brands all around the world. So if you are someone who's in need for sexy content for your social media, or you really want to maintain a competitive edge in your industry, drop me a DM on Instagram. But that's clearly you as a person, though, mate. Do you know what I mean? There's people who probably have things that you have and aren't that way, so they come across it. Do you know what I mean? You mentioned you've had, like, obviously you've dealt with depression and that. Was that directly correlated to the stuff you've dealt with?
I think that obviously, so there was something that obviously I watch a lot of podcasts, and there's something that a few people has quoted, but especially Jimmy Carr quoted. So obviously, if you're sad, you should somewhat be happy to be sad, because if you're sad, it means like there's something causing it. So like, let's say you were supposed to go to a concert and it's cancelled, like, you're sad because there's a specific reason. So, and then depression is generally just a chemical imbalance. That's why these medications are provided. But I think sometimes if you generally already got depression and you put like sad, like a scenario on top of that, obviously it's going to make it worse.
So what were you going through when you became severely depressed?
I think it was a mixture of things. I think number one, it's because I was generally had depression. Number two is like, I think everything's sort of mixed. I mean, the best way to describe it is, obviously, I've got a lot going on. The best way to describe is, imagine, like, getting a doorman and putting them outside 5 bars that are all owned by the same owner and saying, like, right, just protect this door, just check the IDs for this door. And then your owner comes out and your manager throughout the night says, no reason, right? You've got to mark this door as well. Like, oh, you've got to mark this door as well. So before you know it, you're running backwards and forwards and you just can't cope. So that's sort of what I was dealing with. Like, I had the autism, the ADHD. I think the number one thing that started triggering the depression was the concentration. It was 100% the concentration. So when I was 16 and I tried to start jobs, and I think that didn't help with the depression when jobs found out you were autistic, because at the time you were told, like, well, be open about your autism. If anything, like, a lot of employers are like, they'll be happy to employ you because you're autistic. Because diversity, and I can tell you now that that's a lot of shit for most employment places. Even all these commercialized companies, the second they find out you're autistic, if you can make the slightest mistake, they'll say, "Oh, you're too." I've had companies say to me before, "You're too autistic for the job."
Really?
Which I'm really not. But obviously, it's just an excuse for them to take their shitty life out on other people.
What have you demonstrated for them to see you too autistic to do the job?
I think, honestly, between me and you, I think them just knowing I'm autistic, and like, I think it's almost, I was a good employee at everywhere. So I'm not going to say where, but I've worked at a few retail places. And, like, I always demonstrated, like, I just pushed everything. But I think they always say, like, oh, everyone's got mental health. You're not going to be perfect every day. And they push all that. And, like, on some days when I was getting, well, when my depression was bad, like, I might not seem as happy on some days. And I got pulled into the office at this one place I was working, and they went, oh, I think you're just too autistic for the job. And stuff like, I was working at a place at the time, like a retail store, and there was quite a lot of, again, quite a lot of female staff. And they'd get some male customers in who were quite abusive. So it was like, someone was getting shouted at, so I was like, look, can you, like, calm down? Because, like, obviously you can't be being abusive to women. And then the wife was shouting, I was like, look, there's no need for that. And then the next thing I know, the next day, that the manager sort of pulls it in and says, right, we think you're too autistic for the job because you're abusive towards customers. I was like, you as a manager and you as an employee were getting shouted at. The only man who was literally on that, like, floor was protecting you from people shouting, and it's like, oh, well, you're just too autistic. I was like, that's just fucked up.
Do you ever feel, are you like, I know you're fine, but is it something that, I don't want to say bothers you now, but, like, are you, I know it's not the right term. I don't want to say, like, are you over it? Like, do you feel like anybody else? Like, I can work anywhere, or does your, because it's a disability, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Do you actually feel like, I've got a disability, I'm gonna struggle with this job?
I think the thing is, I'd say I could, but I wouldn't. But I generally couldn't because of all the experiences. I would never work in, like, a retail or a normal place again. Mm-hmm. So I'm a powerlifting coach, and that's what I do, and that's all I want to do. I don't care how slow it is at times. It's like, if you constantly keep hammering at something, anything, like I said before about the revisiting the linear progression sort of life, it's like, not everything's going to be smooth sailing. And this isn't just a sport, this isn't business, it's just fucking life. Like, things could be perfect. Like, for example, a family could be perfect, and all of a sudden a granddad dropped down dead, or a car gets smashed. Like, life just isn't perfect. So I think for me, this moment in time, even just today, like now, is like, it's my sort of perfect. Yeah, things can always be better, but that's just life. If you don't want things to always be better, then, like, what's the point? You always want to be better for yourself. You always want to improve what you're doing. And that's sort of like I got it, like, life dysmorphia. It's like you always want to be better. So
I don't think that's a dysmorphia, mate. I think as humans, we are progression seekers. I think we always want to get better and, do more, be more. I know I certainly do. I don't there'll ever be an end to what do you know what I mean? I think that it's the day I stop and I can't say a day I'd ever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, again, it's back to that chicken and egg. It's like, well, I'm not going to stop because I want to grow, but when I grow, you'll get more growth because it's how it works.
Well, this is the thing, but there is people out there who just don't want to progress. Like, you're always going to have people in life who, like, everyone's different. How everyone makes their living is different, and everyone's trying, but there is generally people out there, even when you're in bars or in shops or, like, on a metro, you're always going to hear people saying, like, oh, why do I want to work when I'm getting all this money on universal credit? Like, I can't be asked to work. Why should I work? Like, I'm just going to spend all my money on drink. And if people want to do that with their life, that's obviously their choice. But for me, it's like, what's the fucking point? Like, I've been through so much, and, like, everything's so hard. Like, for me, I literally feel like, especially in powerlifting for my life goals, business goals, I feel like there's nothing I can't do. There's nothing I can't do, because I think with obviously experiencing that at such a young age is actually sort of like, I don't think I've got the mindset of a 19-year-old, that's for sure. I think, again, revisiting the powerlifting, obviously, being around, like, much older men and, like, and women, much older men and women, and sort of people who have their shit together a bit more than the people you would find in bars and clubs and pubs.
And obviously, you're someone that could probably get benefits. You're probably someone that could claim that card, couldn't you, if you really wanted to? And you're still going out, you're a coach, you do it. Like, you don't need to even do what you're doing. You could literally, because you've got all them things. I'm sure there are certain different people who don't have them disabilities would probably see that as a perk. Well, I get this, I get a company car, I bet you there's, not a company car, but you know what I mean? I bet you there's a lot of...
Well, this is the thing. So I was actually on disability for my autism till I was 16. So that's your disability for my autism till I was 16. And even then, I still had quite a lot of issues going on, and they got stopped. And I never got it after that. But at that point, I didn't want it, because I was like, well, fuck you. Because I knew people who were still working, who were, like, pretty much perfectly fine, who I knew very well. And it's like, they knew how to play the card, they knew how to play the book, and they would pretend to be someone that were not. They would pretend to do things to try and get it, and it's like, yeah, but I don't want to do that.
Well, I suppose this is the thing, though, Ollie, mate. It's like a dichotomy, isn't it? Because
you've got to play. Some people just want to play the system, where it's like, well, if you don't think I get it, well, show it, you fucking ass.
Well, I appreciate that, mate, and it shows that you want to do something of your own back. But because one way I look at it, there is people who are much worse off.
Yeah.
With the same things you have, but they just have worse versions of everything.
Yeah, like that social. Like
they can't leave the house. They can't look at people in the eyes. I've met people. So I do understand. So I'm like, well, yeah, there's a reason. There's a disability system in place for those people.
Yeah.
However, you still have all those things, so you should be entitled to it still.
The funny thing is, the people like that who you've just described are normally the ones who are, especially in my experiences, the people like that are normally the ones who are actually working, who are like me, who actually want to better themselves. It's a lot of the people now who I know who are on disability. I know lots of people. There's some guy a lot worse than me who's like a friend of a friend, and his autism's a lot worse than me. He can't look at me in the eye. He struggles to join in with conversations. But yeah, there used to be a law when even though you were working, you could still get disability because you've got it. It's in writing. But like he's not on it, and it's like in the nicest way possible. It's like if he isn't on it, then there's no way I would be on it because he is a lot worse than me. And that's not me saying that in a rude way. That's me saying that as an autistic person, knowing what I deal with, for him to have to deal with even more, it's like, nah. But the people who I know who are on it, a lot of the time now aren't even autistic. They just play over cards to get it. And it's a bit frustrating because them people are actually pretty much, from a perspective, neurotypical. Like, they're not diagnosed with autism. And they play the anxiety card, but they'll go from, they generally did have anxiety, but when it goes away, it just doesn't go away. They just keep pushing it. And it's like, to a point, it's like, well, if they want to do that, that's on them. Like, if they want to do that, that's their life, that's on them. But in a way, it's like, there's people who are like really fucking struggling who shouldn't even be working with what they've got. I'm not one of them people, but people like these are getting it when they shouldn't.
But this is why we need people like you to do these. And I would encourage you to do as many pods as you can. Because the reason I say this is because you'll get to someone who can't look you in the eyes, right, and stuff like that. They wouldn't be able to be sitting here with me today to tell this story. So you need somebody who represents that section of people or to have these conversations. That's why it's fine to talk about them things and bring that awareness. It's really important, mate. And I want to ask you personally, how do you feel doing a podcast?
Personally, it's something I always wanted to do. So obviously, when I was a bit younger, when I first started like powerlifting, I started like an Instagram live podcast sort of thing. It was just as lockdown hit, and it was just like I would interview like world's strongest man competitors, competitive powerlifters, and I would ask them like a set list of questions, and my layout for it was quite autistic, and there was no set layout of questions. But I mean, even to get that sort of like experience at like 14-year-old, and I mean, I even had a guy, shout out to Alex Lungu, who's a very, very good strongman, come out on the podcast and said that he'd suffered with like depression and suicide and stuff like that. And I mean, that was sort of the turning point. It was like, there's guys on here opening up to like aspiring powerlifter and strongman, and like, who's only 14 and is openly like sharing their journey. I was like, I hope that I can sort of get to that point. And I mean, well, I'm here now, so.
And you know what's funny, mate? Because, well, you'll know the Stoltmans and stuff. And I was with them at FIBO. I was with Tom at FIBO. And I noticed even he's very reserved and quite, not shy. I don't want to say shy.
More introverted, yeah.
Massively introverted. And I thought all the people around there, everyone's screaming his name, and like, even when I was like, because I was with him, went for some food and that, afterwards even, I was like, can I get a photo? And I felt like he felt a bit shit taking a photo. And I'm thinking, mate, you're the celebrity, you're the star. Do you know what I mean? I thought, so someone who's as big as him, as strong, obviously best in the game, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? So you look at someone like that and you think, although you may have, I mean, not saying he's got any kind of autism, I don't know.
Yeah.
But although he's introverted, it doesn't have to be a disadvantage. Do you know what I mean? And this is the thing with you. Because of the things you've dealt with through your life, you're probably an unbelievable coach. Because imagine the level of detail you'll put into somebody. Yeah. And this is what I'm saying. So there's a lot of people who look, I guarantee there's people sitting down with some kind of disability going, well, I can't do that because of this. And I'm not saying you don't have the right to be like, and think the world's against you, because if you're going through them things, I've never been through them, so I don't know, but I'm assuming if you're going through things like whether it was the bladder disorder or whatever kind of things you faced, you may feel like you don't have the confidence. However, it could actually be your superpower. And this is the thing that's I think that's really fucking important, because I know so many people, mate, the amount of people I've met, right, and they've got things going on, and I'm like, and I really want to do this, and I'm like, we had a guy on, mate, who's he'll not mind us saying, he's Chris. He's got one arm, and he was in a car. He ended up going to prison. He was in a car crash, I think a police chase, and he ended up falling into a ditch and lost his arm in the whole conflict and that. And afterwards, he wanted to potentially look at coaching and personal training and stuff. And I could tell even by speaking to him that he didn't. Not that he didn't have the confidence, but almost like, well, how can I do that? Like, but if you look at him on his Instagram, he's in the gym benching 5 times more than me. He's got one arm.
Well, this is a funny thing. So this is a good story now. So one of the lifters I coach, called Ant, he was born with a disability. His hands aren't fully formed. He was born with half a leg. And I mean, I've got him competing, and I mean, it took a while to get him into comps, because like, obviously in powerlifting, you've got to meet like rules and regulations and stuff. So, I mean, he can squat a depth perfectly fine. I mean, even for bench, he can balance the bar like on the end of what he has as a hand. But for deadlift, obviously, he hasn't got a fully developed hand. So you used to have to use, like you see these power hooks that people use in the gym, the strap. Yeah, used to have to use that, but it was classed as an advantage because it wasn't his hand, which is a bit shit. But in the rule book, it says you've got to have a hand on the bar. So it took loads of fighting for what to get him to compete. And even now, when he's competing, he can compete at these comps, but it can't go on his official record, which is quite, again, sad, because it's like, how is this a fucking advantage? This man is doing extraordinary things with disadvantages. I mean,
it's phenomenal. It's crazy.
For example, he competed last weekend and he squatted 125 kilo. He benched 90 kilo and deadlifted 155 kilo, which is some number that just ordinary powerlifters are struggling to hit. And like, he's very inspiring. I mean, I've been through a lot, but I mean, it's sort of his attitude. It's like, I mean, he goes everywhere. He does this sport called high rocks as well. He does high rocks. He travels all over with friends on his own. And it's just like he's more motivated than pretty much most people are known.
Do you know what high rock stands for?
I don't think I can say that. I was going to say Wish CrossFit.
It stands for, I just found out the other day, hybrid rock star.
Right.
Did you know that?
What I do now.
Yeah, now you do, mate.
That's not something you'd see me do.
So you learn something in CONTENTCAST and all, mate.
Yeah.
How did you find the gym?
So this is a good question. So it was actually my dad. So originally, just before lockdown, so I was 13. Obviously, my dad was a fitness world record breaker.
What was his world record?
So my dad held the world record for press-ups for a very long time, which was like over 5,500.
In how long?
In the matter of hours. Like, it was
just concept?
Yeah, straight off. I think he also held a record, which in an hour, I think he did like, oh fucking hell, I can't remember. It was in the thousands. If you search up Graham Whaley press-up record, it'll come up. So yeah, my dad did a lot of stuff for charity. He also went to Singapore and he did a world record on the Stairmaster, and he climbed the equivalent of Mount Everest on a Stairmaster for cancer in 9 hours.
Wow. So,
I mean, they literally had to fucking drag him down the stairs after, because obviously nine and a bit hours on a Stairmaster. And he, again, martial artist. He trained with, I can't remember the name of the guy, but the guy who played Darth Maul in Star Wars, he did a bit of training with him when he was over. I do know his name. I feel like it's Ray something, but I don't want to try and guess his name in case it's just a fucking God knows what the name will come out as. So yeah, so obviously my dad had like weights in the garden, and at this point I was still playing football. But even at this point, like from the school I was at the time, like the teacher was coaching a football team, and he let us go and train with them, but he wouldn't let us play because I wasn't good enough. So even at that point, it was again adversity. So as lockdown was sort of hitting me, I was like, well, why don't you start getting into training? So I started off just doing some curls in the garden and some overhead presses, and we started watching Eddie Hall. That was the first person I watched, and I know it's like, oh, it sounds like everyone else, they watching Eddie Hall, but honestly, I started off watching Eddie Hall, and I loved the sort of like, I mean, the number one thing I loved was like, because at this point he just sort of finished like actively competing, so not long after. So, like, he was just a big guy, and even though he was big, strong as fuck, hard as fuck, like, he was so, like, comical, and I love that because it's like, people will look at someone, I did a post about this last night, people will look at someone in the gym and be like, he's a scary bastard, I don't want to talk to him. And some of these people you will see are some of the nicest people you'll ever talk to. People who you think aren't scary probably are. Anyways, to get into it a bit more, obviously, my dad got us into it. Then it just progressed from there. And then, obviously, we went to buy more stuff for lockdown. Like, my dad was like, oh, we'll get you some more stuff for lockdown. And everything was sold out. And obviously, I was watching the Stoltmans at the time. Stoltmans, Brian Shaw, and Eddie Hall. So, started off, I followed strongman before I followed powerlifting. And my dad was like, oh, well, why don't we buy, you know, the log?
Yeah.
We actually, like, met a log off, like, Body Power, like, online. So that was the first, like, bit of gym kit I got with a fucking 30-kilo log. But then, it started off, I just practiced on just the log for ages, because obviously you couldn't get plates from anywhere. And then when a shop opened up near me, I managed to get plates for it. So that was, like, the excitement. And then from there, I started going to the gym. And yeah, it was just all up from there.
Did the gym change you mentally?
Yes, 100%. I think because obviously I always knew that I was meant for something better. As soon as I found powerlifting, I knew that, and strongman stuff, I knew that was it. Obviously I started off being interested in strongman, and strongman's a bit different to powerlifting. Obviously powerlifting is now what I'll be pushing, because that's what I'm very good at it. So what was the question again? So you drifted off.
Did it change your mindset?
Oh,
your mental
yeah,
health?
yeah, 100%.
Did it help your mental health? I'm assuming
100%. So at this point, so when I first started, like, knuckling down with it, I sort of just went back to school, but the whole, like, COVID-19 thing just, I mean, it fucked everyone, but the autistic, that's sort of the turning point where I got depression. That was it. Like, the whole out routine, the whole, like, you couldn't go anywhere, do anything, and all that shit. I mean, it affected everyone, but I think it affected the autistic crowd a lot more. And I think people who generally had social issues, and I think a lot of people developed problems during lockdown as well. So anyways, I went back to school and, like, just wasn't going to last. I mean, from being told, like, oh, you'll never get a GCSE, you'll never be anything in life. I mean, I managed to go through channels, like, through the council to do my GCSEs online. And I actually managed to complete them by the age of, like, 15. So that was like, well, a big fuck you. So, like, yeah, fair enough. I was like, a big fuck you. That's one thing ticked off. So yeah, it definitely changes. And at the time, someone had said, like, if you can do all your learning online and just focus on the gym, it'll probably be the best thing you ever do. Because, I mean, at that age, like, being in a school full of people who were, like, already a bit messed up and, like, but who generally didn't want to be productive, it was like, there was no point being in, like, a toxic environment. It's like being in a room full of smoke. It's only a matter of time. Like,
well, see, this is the thing. I mean, I know you mentioned Eddie Hall as well, like, because he's battled mental health big.
Yeah,
and it's like, again, another advocate, mental health. You know what I mean? Big bloke, a bit like you. You've clearly got some charm, charisma. You're a good lad. You can tell you're a good lad. Like, you've got them. And again, it's just, I want to drum it in that there's people who might be going through certain things, mate, and they can still do them things. I mean, again, it's funny because you mentioned COVID. In how the depression when, you know...
COVID blew the fuck about the fitness
but what's crazy, though, mate, is the fact that you're only 19, right? And you've got we got the heaviest squat.
For 18 and under, so obviously people 18 and under, I've got the heaviest old-type squat. In York, so the division is down from Yorkshire all the way up to the Scottish borders.
So is that the northeast?
Yeah, Yorkshire northeast.
So is that the heaviest in how long?
Ever.
Ever?
Like ever, yeah.
Fucking hell, mate. That is absolutely wild, mate. Do you know, with that, like, kind of where you're at now, yes. do you feel like it's holding you back in any way?
What, the powerlifting?
No, just everything you faced.
I think there's days, especially, I think mainly it's like the sort of like the admin and the coaching stuff. I mean, not even the coach, like the clients I've got, it's like, there's not a problem with them. I'll do their programs, I'll do all their check-ins with them. I think it's the sort of the promoting side, the hardest. It's like, right, well, I need to do this today. And if I want to reach out to new sponsors, I'll write a checklist and, like, I'll sit down and I'll start my laptop and then my head will just go elsewhere. And then half an hour later, I'm sat in the living room talking to my dad and I was like, what the fuck happened to my laptop? Like, literally.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, it's just sort of drifting off. So I think, again, like I'd used the analogy before of like having one dorm and a fucking run 5 doors. It's like I wake up each day. Obviously we'll cover the deeper stuff soon, but I wake up each day and it's like, especially like between like last year, like this time last year to between like winter, it's like I never knew how I was gonna wake up each day. It's like, is my autism gonna be bad today? Is my OCD gonna be bad today? Is my anxiety gonna be bad today? And then obviously, as my OCD anxiety got worse, it caused some health problems as well. So,
are you got many clients in your business?
At the minute, yes, I have. At the minute, I'm keeping it a bit quieter. Obviously, with European Championships in like 2 weeks, like I want the focus to be on that. So I'm in a place where I'm just chill.
And the reason I ask about how many clients you got, mate, is because, again, like, I'll always try and chuck people your way. If there's someone watching this now and they're into powerlifting and they want to be coach, why not check you out? You know what I mean? Where's the best place to find your Instagram?
Yeah. So you've got my Instagram.
Yeah, of course. I'll whack it on.
Yeah. But for anyone who don't know, so my lifting name is the Static Giant. So that's me. That's me label as well. Something, especially after Europeans, I'm going to be pushing a lot more because my next comp of this isn't going to be till December. And I'm holding myself to this because I'm one of these people that's like, I'll say, I want to just enjoy training again and build a nice foundation. I don't want to compete for 6 months. And then a week later, I'll be like, fuck, I'm 6 weeks out again. Why did I enter that comp? It's like...
You mentioned, just there, we'll get on to the serious stuff.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
So, obviously, I think I've briefly told you. So, obviously, anxiety and OCD and depression all sort of link up. So, that is sort of the biggest battle. So, again, to back it up a bit, last year, I was competing at English Championships last year. And I have a bad reputation for putting a bit too much pressure on myself. Even close friends realise that. It's like, why are you holding yourself so... Like, you're going to do it anyways. Why are you holding yourself so accountable to do this exact thing? Like, I'm going to lift this exact number. It's like, see how you feel on the day. Because, like, if you put too much pressure on yourself, it's like sort of... I would say the same thing to my lifters. But as obviously, I'm self-coached and always have been. It just works for me. And it's like... You sort of tell... It's not a hypocrite, but it's easier to coach someone else than yourself.
Yeah, it's easy to give advice to someone.
Well, this is it. You give relationship advice to someone and then you'll advise a fucking car crash tonight. It's only just saying it, bro. But now this is the thing. It was like... So, it's like, it's easier to tell someone else because it's almost like you think you're more special because you know more about yourself. But it started off at English Championships last year and, like, there was a few lads there who were... I'll be straight. I don't care if this is. They were bullies. Not so much the people I were competing with. It was more their friends. Again, I'm not naming names, but it's almost like my friend's stronger than your friend. When they're not stronger than us. If the friend is, that's fair enough because I'm competing against them. But if you're not, you just need to keep your fucking mouth shut, pretty much. So it went from that to like, but I had quite a bad performance. I'll be real. Like I come third to England's, but it still for me it was like wasn't a good day. And, like, these people were saying online, Static's in the bin, he did shit, his autism's fucked him over. And it was, like, stuff like that. It really hurt because it was like, well, these people have been in the sport 2 minutes and they don't have what I have. They don't have a fucking clue. So, obviously, I held the Yorkshire North East squat record at that point for my weight class, but it wasn't the all-time. So, obviously, you've got weight classes, but then mine was, like, the biggest.
Like the overall.
Yeah. So, at this point... I was a bit lighter, so I didn't know to go down or up. That's one of the reasons why I had a shit performance, because I was a bit lighter and I didn't take, because obviously squat is massively dependent on leverages, because obviously body weight is different force and stuff. It's something I didn't take into consideration and I learned the hard way. Anyways, fast forward a bit. I'm in between weight classes and one of my rivals is obviously wanting to take my squat record. He went on to take it. And originally, I was going to sit out the comp because I wasn't feeling great. I was going to sit it out and wait till next year. And then all of a sudden, another comp for the region come up because we'd been so busy as a region. So like, this is my sign to enter. So I entered. So he ended up breaking the record of that comp, the one before it. And I was like, I'd never sort of been so confident in myself because I went from failing at England's like, 245, which was quite a bit under my best squat at the time. And I mean, from the end of like the program before this comp, I just rep 250. So I was feeling confident. So the guy took it to 265, and there was a bit of rival there because he was friends with the people who I'd just been against, and he was friends with bullies as well. So I was like, right, okay, fair enough. Anyways, fast forward a bit more. Ended up competing, but that prep, I was already mentally not great, and I think the pressure of myself, the anxiety, the depression, the OCD was always there, but like, I think the overall pressure of that, and then generally having them things, I mean, I was waking up every day, sort of like, and again, to cover OCD is different, everyone, but I was overthinking every day, and it's like, I just can't lose to this guy. It's like, because I just feel like even when time moves on, I just feel like it would just be something I just think I couldn't move on from. And it's not the losing, it's the losing to bullies. I think that's the number one thing. So I think the overall pressure, and then life in general, and then loads of people who didn't even know us, who were, I mean, growing adults as well, posting shit about us online. So I think all that, and then general, obviously, life problems, like with what I had. I was waking up every day. And the thing is with OCD, is like the intrusive thoughts is like, when you wake up, it's unfiltered. Everything you could think just is there. So this is that. And then it causes a condition called IBS, which basically is when your mind sends, obviously, your brain sends signals to your stomach to say you need the toilet when you don't. So I was getting like stabbing pains. I was like, I couldn't think. And then I was having anxiety attacks and being sick. I mean, my heaviest session of prep, that day I'd collapsed and I was being sick on the toilet crying. And I was just like, not fucking this time. Almost like I faced the devil. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. Got up and I'd squatted 260 that day. And I mean, it moved like crap. But I was like, you know what? I was like, obviously, I'd tape it back for comp now. If I can hit this after literally spewing in a toilet, then opening a Monster, and then having fucking Cocoa Pops, literally, till obviously letting things calm down, obviously tapering back for comp, there's nothing I couldn't do, and obviously I proved it when I beat him. So,
well, just something I was so with the OCD stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Did you mention that? Sometimes, or I don't know if it was the OCD, that you feared that you couldn't open your arms and stuff.
Yeah. So again, we'll backdate it a bit to 16. So one of my number one fears when I was 16 is like, so OCD is different to everyone. So like, OCD for some people could be a light switch. It's like, oh, I've got to turn that off 5 times, come back, and if I don't do that, the world's gonna end. That can be OCD for a lot of people. I've been through phases like that, but my main one was obviously in powerlifting, you've got to meet certain rules. So for bench, you won't get the start command, so your elbows are locked. And for squat, you won't get the squat command until your legs are locked. So one day out of the blue, I was like, oh, I'll just check I can like lock my elbow. I was like, oh yeah, it's fine. And then I was like, yeah, I can. And I mean, it progressed from that. And then months later, it was to the point I was like, breaking out crying, having anxiety attacks, going in my parents' room at 3 a.m. and be like, is my fucking arm straight? Because I need to be able to lift. So it's like
crazy, isn't it?
So yeah, because it's sort of like, I think it sort of takes what you have an emotional attachment to. So like whatever you have an emotional attachment to, it sort of grasps onto it and tries to deprive you of that. So it really just creates issues that just aren't there.
Do you eat in excess of like? Because with power, is it like a growth phase? Are you always trying to get bigger? I know, again, it's about leverage, isn't it? So where's like the happy medium? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think...
Because surely you'd think the bigger they are, stronger.
Yeah, I mean, like...
I've got mates who are natural mate. I don't know if you know who Kiffy West is. He's a mate of mine.
Bodybuilder.
And he's an absolute animal mate.
Yeah, big guy. Yeah, I think... Thing is, it's like, fat is a good thing, but too much fat isn't. Like, tissue over fat is all you... Like, fat don't do lifting, tissue does.
So, okay then. What do you eat as a powerlifter on a day-to-day basis?
So, back in December, I went up to like 118 kilo. And actually, my last comp I weighed in, I cut down a class. I went down to 107 kilo. So, obviously, I'd lost quite... How much is that? Like 11 kilo. So, again... This is sort of revisits to anxiety and OCD, the same sort of phase. So when you've got depression, anxiety, and OCD, when you're being sick and like having anxiety attacks, you don't think, oh, I need to have chicken and rice now. You think, I need to fucking eat. Like, you
is it literally just calories in?
At that point, yes. I'm a lot more set. We'll get to that point in a minute, but at that point, it was just like, right, I've been sick, I've got anxiety. I haven't been sick because I've got a bug. I've been sick because I've got crippling anxiety. Now, if I'm training later, I need to just eat. So I'll be like, right, there's a pizza shop there. Just fucking spend 20 quid in a pizza shop. Or like, oh, there's a McDonald's. Just literally just eat what you can because like, the mindset was at that point when I was so ill, it's like, I'd rather get calories in, knowing it's shit, knowing that if I'm going to risk bringing it back up because of my anxiety, I want it to at least be calorific and not like, oh, just a fucking bowl of chicken and rice. Cause,
there's truth in that though, mate, because you still need the calories in.
Well, this is it. You literally, so like, I'd rather be like, and the thing is, if you feel like shit, fast food always tastes better. Let's be real. Like, no, like, for example, like, the stuff about like, oh, when women have breakups, they want a tub of Ben and Jerry's. No woman's ever went, oh, I want a fucking bowl of fruit. It's like, they want a fucking tub of Ben and Jerry's. And this is controversial.
Do you perform better though on fast food?
No, because obviously fat takes a long time to break down. So, for example, if you were to have a massive dinner now, which obviously, like, let's say you were to have a steak, obviously steak can take up to 3 days to digest. As soon as you have the steak, like, blood almost rushes to the stomach to start to break it down. So obviously it makes you lethargic. So if you think about it, if I'm having fucking 5 double cheeseburgers at McDonald's, that's a lot of fat. So it make you lethargic. Where like if you're having carbs, it can digest in anywhere between like an hour to 2 hours. So like
you
before
need some fast acting carbs.
Yeah, something fast. There's a different type of carbs, but like at that point, I wasn't asked about that. It was just like living. It was just getting up and like getting up. If I'm gonna have an anxiety attack, just eat what I can. Because this is another thing about the OCD. I would sit. Some days it would take us 2 hours just to eat me breakfast. I mean, I don't have a big breakfast either. At the time, it was literally like, I don't know, like cereal or pancakes or 2 bagels. It would take us fucking 2 hours to eat 2 bagels.
How? Why?
Anxiety.
Right. Okay.
I would retch. Like I would feel sick if I was eating.
So now, day-to-day basis, what type of food you putting away?
So now it's been. So I'll be honest, because I'm real with people. I don't look shit. My diet recently had been really good until last week. I spent an unholy amount of fast food this last week. But before I'd sort of went a bit off track, I'd sort of changed to like porridge on a morning or even like bagels with bacon and egg, and like I would get like chicken, and I would make like pesto pastas, or I would make like even like the Nando seasoning you get, and just like making it into wraps or toasties and stuff like that. I'm trying to think what else. But yeah.
I want to know what it's like now, though.
Oh,
you said you've eaten loads of shit. I want to know what shit you're eating.
So
he knows how much I love, mate. I love hearing what people eat. It's a weird thing I've got.
So last week, obviously, I'm probably one of McDonald's biggest members. So I love the points. You know, you spend so much, you get points. So last week I probably spent like £15 in Mackies easily.
That's not that, man.
Yeah, no.
That's not big boy food.
Yeah.
15 quid a Mackies. You can't even get a meal for that, man.
No, but I think the order I got, I think it was 5 normal cheeseburgers, right? And then, because I wanted the bread, so it was 5 normal cheeseburgers. I got the new steakhouse stack. Actually, I think it might have been a bit more than 15 quid. And then it was the McCrispy, and then I got a double quarter, and then I got a double. And then I got a fucking frappe, and then I'd had so much points that I got another double.
So can you put that away, no bother? Or do you feel like you're force feeding a bit?
It depends. I think when I'm like that, yes, because I think I'd been so like, I was so fatigued, because from me competing, I literally only competed on the 4th of May. From me competing till like a week after I had one of my lifts, I was competing the next week, and it was just like, I didn't even have a chance to deload, like to rest, like to have a chill week with training, because it's like, it was just like a normal start of a new program, because it was like I didn't have time to wind down because obviously I got European students, so it was like I was so fucking like broken and fatigued that I just went into McDonald's. It's like, you know what, anything that I think I would eat, I'll just order, and I finished it all. So.
Do you still struggle with routine now? Is it something that you need?
Yes, yeah, in a way. So. But I think now it's sort of like, this is so when things collide, it's like, I'll set a routine. Like, I'll set a routine, but then I'll get sidetracked. So it could be like, oh, well, I'll do some admin work this morning, and then I'll do this. But then I'll get distracted, because it's normally because it takes us too long to eat my breakfast, because I get so distracted. Like, yeah.
The reason I say that, mate, and that's why I'll apologise, because I know that I know you've asked to come on the podcast a few times, mate, but today I kind of told you last minute.
Yeah.
And obviously naive to me, and again, this is why I'm learning. Like, I don't know how much I could have fucked up your routine, so I would just apologise, mate, for last minute.
I think, in fairness, not sort of like, well, yeah, I think you deserve to be bigged up, but not to make it like too big-headed. But I think because this is something that I've wanted to do and something that obviously could benefit both me and you, it's sort of more of an excitement than a burden, because it's like, this to be on a podcast is great. So that's not something that would sort of bother me. Where like, but if it was something negative, then yes. But if it's something that I'm interested in, then if anything, it's an excitement of the day, if that makes sense.
Legend, mate. I've got one final question for you, Ollie. What would you tell a young lad who had the things that you had, or that you lived with?
I think it's just like, not to sound like everyone else, but it's just like, just don't stop, because I feel like the second you stop, or the second you normalise, like, I think it's easy, especially for the day and age we live in. I mean, you see you see kids on the streets, like, vaping from the age of 10, and I feel like we're in a society where it's so easy for people to just fall off, and because their mum and dads have obviously got tough lives, or because like their families aren't really there, I think it's an excuse to sort of be, we'll say a bit of a brat. Because like some kids are, let's be real. When really it's just like, don't let other people's actions or like your life define your whole. Because let's be real, a kid at like, let's say 13, 14, yes, your past always going to be there, but like, time you hit 18, 19, 20, it's like, if you put it on the right path, even though it's always there, it's not really going to fucking matter. But yeah, if you do something stupid when you're 13, 14, 15, that could affect your life in a very, very bad way. It's like, and it's always going to be there. So I think the number one thing I would say to people is, don't force yourself to fit in. Don't like sort of chip yourself to fit into a puzzle that you don't fit. Like, if you want to do a sport or want to do something where, I don't know, like, some people like photography or like even gaming, like, yeah, people say like, oh, kids these days are always on their PCs. Well, it's better for them to be on a PC than to be stabbing someone in the street, let's be real. So like, whatever you want to do, just do it in a positive manner. But like, just don't give a fuck whatever people think. The quote I live by, especially recently, because even in powerlifting you get a lot of haters, and it's like, good or bad, even if it's a good story, people will always find a way to make it bad if they hate you. So like, just do it anyways, because every fucker's gonna judge you. So just know what you want. So,
Ollie, thank you so much for coming on, mate.
That's great. Thank you very much.
So if you've enjoyed this conversation and you like things like this, make sure you click up there and watch this episode.